Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
We're going to continue our Packers potential prospect preview series where we take a look at a few prospects each day, one or two each day, about prospects of who potentially could be a Packers pick for their first round, back end first round, maybe an early day 2 pick. So we're realistic ones too. Like, we're not going to do a quarterback because Green Bay is not going to draft a quarterback. We're not going to do Travis Hunter because unless Green Bay trades up in the top 3, top 5, it ain't going to be that. Essentially, realistic options that could be there and potentially that the Packers would select for their first round or maybe early day 2. So we've really focused on corners, defensive linemen, edge rushers, wide receivers. And for today's prospects, we've got two of them. We're going to take a look at 2 corners. Okay? We're going to look at 2 corners. And we'll try to hit up I'm not going to say try. We are going to hit up as many prospects as we possibly can leading up to the first day of the draft. So the final day of our series will actually be on that Wednesday before the first round of the draft, which our last day will be the 23rd. So we are going to do as many prospects as we possibly can. So our 2 corners that we're going to look at today, we've got from the University of Texas, Jahdae Barron, and from Kentucky, Maxwell Hairston. Let's start with Mr. Barron, corner from Texas, from the Longhorns. If you're looking at a little bit of his physical traits, he's 5'11", $194 in weight. You look at his next-gen stats, where he ranked in combine and such. Second, production score is 94, ranked second amongst cornerbacks at the 2025 combine. Athleticism score ranked 10th. Total score second out of corners at the combine. Ran a 40-yard dash of a 4.39. 4.39. This is a guy, if you've been looking at different mock drafts, he's been attached to Green Bay a few different times, but it seems like his stock may be rising. And Daniel Jeremiah, NFL draft expert for NFL.com, very high on him. In fact, has him as his 8th best prospect in the entire draft. So Daniel Jeremiah's got his top 50 prospects, okay? And he's got Barron at number 8, but rising. Now, that doesn't mean he's got him mocked, going in the top 10, but he is climbing up there. So here's what Daniel Jeremiah had to say about Jahdae Barron. Barron is a talented Swiss Army knife. He aligned outside, in the slot, and in the box as a dime linebacker for the Longhorns. He made impact plays in every game I studied. He's a quicker than fast athlete with outstanding eyes and conviction. He's at his best when he can play off and see through receivers to the quarterback. He reads the quarterback's drop and anticipates to beat pass catchers to the ball. He doesn't waste steps and has outstanding hands. He lacks elite top speed, but he's always in position, and he is excellent at locating, playing the football downfield. He has good timing and feel as a blitzer. He can adjust from pass to run defense to collect tackles. His batting average as a tackler in space is very high. And it's interesting that Daniel Jeremiah put this player comp out here because yesterday when I was kind of watching some of his clips on YouTube and highlights, there was a player that jumped out to me. And when I looked up what Daniel Jeremiah's profile had on him this morning, it was the same player that I thought of. And it was Brian Branch. Brian Branch, who plays for the Detroit Lions right now. Overall, Barron excels at taking the ball away and reminds me of Brian Branch when he was coming out of Alabama. Brian Branch was a guy that a lot of Packers fans a couple years ago wanted the Packers to draft. So you hear a lot of that stuff. Versatile corner, plays multiple different spots, can play inside, can play outside. Dime backer. That just, you're probably saying, man, that should easily fit what Jeff Hafley wants to do with defense. Give Jeff Hafley this type of corner to put in his defense. And I think you'd be right. That Jeff Hafley would utilize his skill sets and put him in different spots on the field, on the defense, to affect games. He would be an interesting Swiss Army knife type player for Green Bay. So if he was the pick for Green Bay, I would hope that Hafley doesn't kind of pigeonhole him and doesn't really say, okay, we're just going to keep you a slot corner, or we're just going to primarily play you as an outside corner. I would hope that he would utilize his skill sets and not just limit him to a certain role and utilize him all across. I mean, a lot of fans are probably thinking, like a Charles Woodson type of role. I'm not saying Barron is the next Charles Woodson, because that is incredibly high praise. But a guy that can do different things on the defensive side, and especially coming from the secondary. This last year, first team AP All-American, first team All-SEC, won the Jim Thorpe Award, which is the nation's top defensive back. He was a finalist for the Bronco Nagurski Award, which is the nation's top defender. Was the Peach Bowl defensive MVP. I mean, you talk about he's playing in the SEC, going up against that speed and such. I think he would be a very, very intriguing fit within this defense. And yes, they got Hobbs in the offseason, but adding this guy to this secondary with a Xavier McKinney and an Evan Williams and Hobbs and Keyshawn and that'd be really intriguing to me. He'd be really intriguing, and I wouldn't be upset about it, to be honest with you. I would not be upset about it. I think that could be a very, very fun piece to watch within this Jeff Hafley defense. Let's take a look at another corner. And, a lot of Packers fans, too, at least if you go on socials and mocks, they're familiar with Barron because they've probably seen him mocked to Green Bay quite a bit. But there's another corner that has really risen up as of late in terms of, talking and just his stock has risen up. And that's Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. 5'11", $183. Super fast. Ran the 40 in a 4.28. His production score, next gen stats at the combine, was 8th. Athleticism score, 8th. Combine cornerback rank was 7th. Daniel Jeremiah has him as his 32nd ranked prospect, but skyrocketing. He has him moving up 11 spots. Hairston is lean, athletic corner with ideal play speed and fluidity. In press coverage, he incorporates a one-hand jam before turning and carrying vertical routes. He has plenty of burst and speed. In off coverage, he likes to settle and catch receivers at the break point. He'll need to play cleaner with his hands down the field at the next level. In Kentucky's defense, he rolled back to play in the middle of the field versus certain motions, but he was late to diagnose and react from that alignment. He's willing in run support and is a dynamic blitzer. He was limited to 7 games this past season due to a shoulder injury, which impacted his tackling. He had a very productive 2023 season, but wasn't targeted much in the games I studied. This is from Daniel Jeremiah. This past year overall, he offers an enticing blend of movement skills and production. So I'll tell you the player comp that my player comp when I was watching some of his stuff yesterday that I came up with. And I'm not. This is just my opinion, and my sample size is incredibly small compared to the Daniel Jeremiahs and the Matt Millers and the Mel Kipers, et cetera out there. But watching some of his highlights yesterday, the player that came to my mind was Jahdae. Just kind of watching his play style and watching some of his highlights, that was the player that came to my mind. And Jahdae, where'd he play? Louisville, Kentucky. same heights and such. So that was the player that jumped out to my mind. And then, you read Daniel Jeremiah's, he had a shoulder injury, and it's like, that's Jahdae again over there too. But this is an outside corner. And if you are a believer that Green Bay needs an outside corner, needs some speed when it comes to their corners, this might be the guy that fits that bill. I mean, when you run a sub 4.3 40 going up against some of these wide receivers with the speed that they possess, you might want that, because we know Keyshawn's not going to be the fastest dude. Carrington's not going to be the fastest dude, right? I mean, if you want a little speed with your corner, if that's what you want to address in this draft, this may be the guy to do it. And the biggest question around him is probably going to be, okay, he went through some shoulder injuries this past year. And I'm sure Packers fans are saying we don't need another corner that is going through shoulder injuries. Okay, I understand that. I get that. Totally get it. And he might need a little bit more molding to become a full-fledged starter, which, okay, you look at what Green Bay has at the corner position right now with their depth, you can probably afford to do that with Maxwell. But I would say he is better suited playing on the outside. The only thing, you look at the height, and it's 5'11", and it didn't really matter so much to Jahdae, but you kind of wonder, it's like, okay, if he's matched up outside and those tend to be bigger receivers, will he get out-physicaled? Will, the other bigger receivers essentially out-jump him and make plays on those 50-50, and he will lose the majority of those 50-50 balls? But he's got great makeup speed to catch up. I mean, that was something that Jahdae had. That's something, a lot of those really good outside corners have if they have that makeup speed. So, but this is a guy that, again, he's just kind of really, his stock is flying up on the mock drafts or the on these one of my prospect rankings, especially from Daniel Jeremiah. And you're probably starting to see his name a little bit attached to Green Bay because, well, where Green Bay's drafting that first round. If Maxwell's a guy that's inching up towards in that first round, Green Bay's drafting at the back end there. And then you talk about, him being a dynamic blitzer. We saw Jeff Hafley do that a little bit with his corners last year. Some of it was probably just because he had to get pressure at some point from somewhere because he wasn't getting it from his front four. But this is a guy that is pretty good at it too. And if you put him on the outside, you got a little bit more depth from that corner position for a guy that could play the outside and keep up speed-wise with some of those speedy outside receivers.